Vikings, Niners. Wow. With the Saints being eliminated, the road to the Super Bowl has become much clearer for these Niners. Let's take a look at the best odds page on the planet. Sportsbookreview.com odds page. San Francisco opens up at Pinnacle -6.5 and -112. Money coming in on the Niners. Now 7s across the board. This total opens up at 45. Now we have 44s across the board, except for at Intertops, where we have a 44.5. We got the game 20 in our chat. Vikings 4-4 on the road through the regular season, and they pick up a big road win against a winning team, something they did not do all year. Going up against these Niners, 56 Fahrenheit Saturday afternoon in Saturday afternoon in Santa Clara. 56 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, but 16-mile-per-hour winds is what we are dealing with. And the Niners get pieces back. D Ford expected to play. Quan Alexander. And then don't forget Tart at safety. 4th-round pick in 2015 has become a very important piece of this Niners squad. You got DeForest Buckner. You got Ford now. You have Bosa. This is a healthy group ready to get to work. Mike Hughes for the Vikings cornerback placed on injured reserve prior to the wildcard game. They lost Mackenzie Alexander during the wildcard game, but Dalvin Cook looks healthy. Adam Thielen was amazing. Donnie Rightside, do the Vikings have another upset in them?
I don't think they have another upset in them. And I got to tell you, if you're San Francisco sitting back, because last week in the wild card rounds, I'm saying you can't pick two teams out better for the 49ers to absolutely dismantle than the Philadelphia Eagles and the Seattle Seahawks. Two teams with terrible offensive lines, rested and ready 49ers, going to get them on a short week. And then all of a sudden Minnesota comes out of nowhere and knocks off the New Orleans Saints. And they played well. And they did everything you needed to do. Sit back in coverage, rush 4 guys, let your playmakers take over. And again, Drew Brees not be able to push the football down the field really came into play. That was an overtime game. But now you got the Minnesota Vikings coming in on an extremely short week again and heading out west to play the rested and ready San Francisco 49ers. Before I get into a lot of notes here, this is a really good football game, but there's a lot of key components with the 49ers should be able to exploit in this game. Look, I said it all along before I even start getting over the notes there. San Francisco is my favorite team to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. That's not going to stop here, Jimmy.
I do not see it stopping here either. RB Friend giving us some stats from the chat says 49ers started the season 8-0. In all 8 games, they had 30-plus rushing attempts. Since 5-3 with no games over 30 attempts. Also, San Francisco 0-6-1 against the spread when favored by 6 or more this season. And that 0-6-1 against the spread when favored by 6 or more this season doesn't concern me. Although, something happens when an underdog wins a big road game to start the playoffs off. They start believing. They start believing in each other. And that's a dangerous thing. And the Vikings have become a dangerous squad. Whale Capper, Vikings, Niners, have you made a move?
I have laid the points with the Niners. I know it's a little uneasy feeling whenever you're laying a touchdown with a quarterback who has never made a playoff start in his career to this point. Jimmy G will get, will pop his cherry on Saturday afternoon against a reasonable, difficult opponent. I guess I would say that this was not the best outcome for the Niners, hosting the Vikings, but it was big for the Niners, Super Bowl hopes in that the Saints got eliminated, because I was not feeling great about the potential of the Saints and the Niners in a second head-to-head after everything the Niners had to leave out on the field to get the win against them last time. In this matchup, though, I think there are a lot of positives you can point to for the Niners. You pointed out right in the open, they have outstanding depth at the defensive line position. They're getting quite a lot of help back. And that was kind of the distinguishing characteristic about their defense between the first 8 weeks of the season when they were world beaters and the second 8 weeks of the season when they had a much tougher schedule and their defense, gave up some serious points. Like, the big difference between those two parts of the season for them is that they just were lacking a little bit of depth on their D-line. They weren't as able to get fresh legs in there, get the rotations, get their guy, get their horses, in there. And now with a healthy unit, they are going up against an offensive line that gives up pressure. They're going up against a quarterback who wilts under pressure. And I think this sets up well for the San Francisco, defense to have a nice day on Saturday. But even more than that, what really gets me fired up about this game is you have a Niners offensive genius in Kyle Shanahan, who is crafting a specific game plan to take advantage of a defense with Mike Zimmer that is basically, they have one look. They give you one look, and then they have a very difficult time making adjustments and really kind of, figuring out a better way to defend you. And as you saw, even in that Saints game, you had a D effort from Drew Brees. He was unable to make a D pass to beat you. And still, the Saints were live all the way throughout that game. If they win the coin toss, I'm not 100% sure if we're not talking about the Saints in Green Bay instead of Seattle. And, but lo and behold, they lose the coin toss. They make a deep play to Thielen when there was a key injury, to Marshawn Lattimore on that play. And, the rest is history. They don't get the offensive PI call, and, the Minnesota gets the amazing upset, and it is what it is here. But the matchup of Shanahan versus the Zimmer defense, I think, is pretty critical, because we knew going into that game, Saints-Vikings, that, the Vikings defense was beatable. You can score points on this team. You can hit them with the deep ball. The problem is Drew Brees did not have the arm strength. He did not have the accuracy deep down the field to make it happen. Weirdly, Taysom Hill did, but they didn't use him quite as much as they ought to have, apparently. But Jimmy Garoppolo can make those passes. If they, they have a fully healthy, deep, offensive line, they're going to be able to neutralize the monster pass rush that's coming right now from Danielle Hunter. Give Jimmy Garoppolo time to pick apart the Vikings defense down the field, and I think the Niners pretty much pick their number here. I see them scoring between 28 and 35 points, and I think their defense can hold the Vikings under 20. So this is a play the points with the Niners for me. And if we're getting a little frisky, if you want to get a little wild, I'll also take some over. I'll also take some Niners team total over, because I do think their offense is the distinguishing unit in this game.
Wow, I like it. Bullish on these Niners. Donnie, you set a nice table with that breakdown off the top. We now know that Whale Capper is believing in these Niners, believing in Shanny, who knows Cousins well from 2012 when Cousins broke in with the Skins. Our guy MJ, Michael Jordan in the house, says San Francisco wins by 2 scores. Robert Kahn says 49ers win by 6. RB Fern says still love the 49ers here. Let's get into those numbers you were speaking of, Donnie Rightside. Vikings, Niners.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you start just with the basics here, the best thing you can get in football is rest, right? One team's sitting back waiting. One team went on the road and played their hearts out in the overtime, then flew back, then have to fly out west, and you're going to play on a Saturday in the early slot. So that already factors against you. Let's also take a look at what the Vikings like to do. They're a dome team, as we know, right? Dome games this year, Jimmy, that we're looking at. Let me just pull up the numbers real quick. 8-2 overall. When they play on natural surface, that's 1-3. They're built on speed. Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs, getting a good pass rush. Now you're going to go outside and get obviously on grass. Now, the key components of this game, if you look at what the San Francisco 49ers do really well on defense, they bury guys in the pocket. Teams that have the ability, Russell Wilson, play him twice a year, as well as Kyler Murray, play him twice a year. Those teams give the Niners a little bit of problems because you can run read option, and you can have the quarterback get out of the mayhem when they crush the pocket, and then, in a sense, pick up yards downfield. In the 2 games that they played Arizona, Murray rushed for 34 yards and 67 yards, with Russell Wilson, Jimmy, 53 yards and 29 yards. And the other game that they lost on the road in an absolute quagmire rainstorm, 101 yards on the ground from the league's MVP, Lamar Jackson. So when we take a look at Kirk Cousins, he has 69 yards. No. Not 69 yards in the past couple weeks, first 8 games. 69 yards total rushing on the season. So when you take a look at a team that doesn't run with their quarterback, you can zero in on the running back that they have, obviously in Dalvin Cook, but you can also collapse the pocket. That feeds into it. If you look at these teams and take out those games with Kyler Murray and you take out those games with the rushing quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, also with Seattle, they've averaged victory 31-17 against pocket quarterbacks. So if they know where you're standing as a quarterback, they're going to get after you. Now you say, all right, well, what happened in the Atlanta game down the stretch? Keep in mind, they only lost 3 games. They lost that football game, but also had 4 starters down in that game. Sherman didn't play, Tart didn't play, K'Wan Williams, and D Ford missed that game. You say, well, they lost by a touchdown. Well, I mean, some factors come into that on the last play of the game where they fumbled the ball into their own end zone to give up 6 points. And also, let's keep in mind, that's a game where Julio Jones absolutely went insane. 13 catches, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You're not going to have that same type of production this week with any of the wide receivers from the Minnesota Vikings. And also, how about the nose of the football crossing over the goal line to win that football game? So if you take that game away, they probably should have won that one. The San Francisco 49ers are built to win this football game. And also, Whale Capper brought up the best play caller in football, Kyle Shanahan, has a full deck of cards on offense. And Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator that's interviewing for head coaching jobs, a full deck on defense. This is the best team by far in the NFC. I'm not backing off now. They win by margin here.
They win by a margin here. Donnie, this total's gone from 45 to 44. 45 to 44. Do you agree with that market movement towards the under?
I actually starting to believe that. If you go to 5 Dimes right now, Jimmy, offshore, it's amazing because you look at the Minnesota offense. Ooh, Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen. Look at what they can do. Kirk Cousins is hot. They just went on the road and won. It's 17.5 with plus juice, meaning the real number is 17 going on the road. That should tell you how well the 49ers should be able to get after it. I agree with the line movement going lower. I think it's up to San Francisco to carry the total if you go over. I don't see an offensive explosion. Let's also not forget today, both wide receivers. Diggs hasn't practiced yet this week for being an illness, and it's a short week. And Adam Thielen was just added to the injury report today after practice with an ankle injury. Good luck.
He was added to the injury report. What a game. He had 129 yards on 7 catches last week. Whale Capper, you like the Niners team total over. Does that mean that if you had a free play on the total, you would be going over this number of 44?
It does, and I don't 100% agree with the market move here. I would have expected this to go from 45, trickle up to 47. I think the fact that we had 4 unders come home last week, the fact that people are looking at the Niners as this defensive powerhouse and they're going to be the unit that dictates, I think that is depressing this price a little bit. I personally think this is an over game, and it is largely on the back of San Francisco getting into the 30s.
Well, I'm going to pull out this team total very quickly here at Bet365. See what we are dealing with each team. The Niners team total is at 26.5. 26.5, and that's juiced to the over, minus 125 to the over. This Vikings team total is at 17.5, juiced heavily to the under. Heavily to the under. Minus 138 under 17.5. What do you think of that, Whale Capper?
I mean, obviously, that if you look at just what's happening with the market and the fact that San Francisco has trickled up from 6.5 to 7, and the totals come down, that's basically telling you people in the market wide think that the Niners defense is going to really keep this unit under wraps, or maybe just people knew that Thielen was banged up, they knew Diggs was sick, and they're counting on the Vikings struggling offensively in this game. But regardless, I think the Niners team total, I wouldn't lay the juice on over 26.5. I would sell up. I would look for a 27, even a 27.5 here. Honestly, I don't know what the Vikings are going to be able to do defensively to stop this unit. Their cornerback situation is dire. If you had even an average Drew Brees in that game in the Superdome, the Saints get to 30, and I think the Niners are primed for an offensive explosion. And I'm discounting the potential that they get a defensive touchdown. There will be opportunities to strip sack Cousins, and Dalvin Cook is a little loose with the football sometimes. Thielen gave up a brutal fumble early in that game against the Saints. If the Niners can capitalize on a takeaway, create short fields, and give us their on average red zone efficiency from this season, then I think we get this team total home for the Niners.
Niners team total over 26.5 right now at Bet365. Whale Capper making a move on the Niners. Donnie, will you be getting to the window with the San Francisco 49ers?
I will, and the only reason I didn't send it over to you yet, Jimmy, is because I missed the 6.5 that was available early in the week, so it's at 7 right now. I'm not so sure it goes to 7.5 by the time the weekend's here. The only reason I haven't gone on it yet is because maybe we get that sliver of 6.5 that shows up at, I'm not talking about paying for it, expensive. A true 6.5, maybe minus 115 at the most. Then I would go ahead on it. But the 49ers are my team here. I'm going to be on them either way this weekend, Jimmy.
I love it. There is the first game on Saturday.